Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Slavosphere. Today we have a special guest, Dan Kleinman. He have been running the Safe Library blog, and he's been researching the ALA, the American Library Association, for 20 years. Dan, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hello, my name is Dan Kleinman. I'm from SafeLibraries. I've been researching the ALA for 20 years. No, and in the United States, there's the American Library Association that kind of makes sort of a proposed policy for libraries nationwide. And some of the policy that they propose is troublesome. And so I've been addressing issues of communities who have run into problems related to these policies in their communities. And I'm thinking that if people only became aware of the laws and policies that could apply instead of the ones that the American Library Association wants to apply, they would be able to have more control over their own local libraries. So I've been doing this for 20 years, and I'm happy to be on here now and talk to you about these issues. Anything you have to ask, go ahead.
So how did you get into this?
Oh, well, long ago, I was listening to Dr. Laura Schlesinger, and Dr. Laura Schlesinger said something really crazy. She said that librarians are trying to sort of push pornography onto children in public libraries and public school libraries. And I said to myself, this lady is crazy. No librarian is going to be doing that. And I literally stopped listening to her after that broadcast. And that's how I got started in this, because then when I had my own kindergartner go to school, on the fourth day of kindergarten, she brought home a book from public school. And she asked me to read it to her. And I said to myself, well, this is the top. This is the American dream. I have a beautiful wife, a house in the country, and my kid going to public school wants me to read a book from the library. I began to read the book, and it was completely inappropriate for her, and I had to change the words, like a girl skinny dipping on a date with three guys. Ooh la la, she said in a lusty voice. Well, of course, my kid wasn't going to understand all that stuff in kindergarten, but I thought that was weird, so I brought it into the principal, and I said, you know, why did my kid get this on the fourth day of kindergarten, my first kid in school, you know? And she says, well, let me take some time to consider it. And 4 days later, she says two things. One, it was multicultural, from which I learned that I guess that only Puerto Ricans go skinny dipping in a pool with three guys, ooh la la, they said in a lusty voice, which was irrelevant. And two, it was recommended by the American Library Association, by the school librarian, who was a member of the American Library Association, using a list for kindergartners of recommended books. And right then, Dr. Laura Schlesinger came back into my mind. I was like, what? And then, so I went to the public library that very day. And in that public library, there was a website. It says Fun Sites for Kids and Teens. And on this list of fun sites for kids and teens was a website called Go Ask Alice, where you can learn how to auto-asphyxiate yourself so you have a better, I don't know how much I can say.
Yeah, sex life. Yeah,
wait, this was for kindergarteners?
Yes. And so,
Dan, this sounds unbelievable.
This was in the public library. So in one day, I learned not only did my kid get a book from the American Library Association, but the library had a website, Fun Sites for Kids and Teens, including an ALA recommended site, Go Ask Alice, where you can learn things like that, which a library director later told me that one child in her library likely actually died via that means from the American Library Association.
Incredible.
Well, they didn't teach us so much, you know, about how to properly do.
This was incredible to me, that what Dr. Laura might have been saying was true. I began to do my own investigation, and I found out that, well, she was right. And that started what became my initial website, which was awful. And then it became Safe Libraries when I joined with another man, because his library was making Playboy available to the children.
What?
and they would not do anything about it, even when the town sent a unanimous letter to the library stating, stop buying Playboy magazine. And the library refused, with Judith Krug, a name who will come up a lot, stating in the Chicago Tribune, I'm sick and tired of people trying to turn libraries into safe places for children. I called the mayor. Wait, it gets a little bit worse. I called the mayor. I said, why aren't you doing something about this? And he said, and you're going to hear this a lot, because we're afraid of lawsuits from the American Civil Liberties Union.
Yes.
Incredible.
ACLU, right?
Yeah, but I'm not understanding this, because it's illegal to buy both magazines if you're a child, right? But it's available to rent from a library?
Yes, because it is free speech. As you know, they say it's protected under the First Amendment. Am I correct, sir?
That, among other things.
Yeah, of course.
So how did this happen?
So what?
How did this happen? Like, could you tell us a background? Like, I assume this didn't happen overnight. So could you tell us about the ALA? How did they get started, and how did they turn into this?
Okay. The American Library Association, if we can set aside this, is actually a useful organization, obviously, because it helps libraries get organized with various things and helps them with sometimes useful things like, how to prepare for a guy comes into a gun with your library, how to prepare for that. So they'll have things on security and things like that. But at some point, they changed their focus from helping people and children to making it so that children were now the targets of their agenda, and it would be up to the parents to keep the children from inappropriate material. And then the American Library Association would go out of its way to mislead the parents, so even the parents couldn't help the children. So what happened was, in about 1969, a woman named Judith Krug, who's right here over my head, joined the American Library Association. She had been a board member of the Illinois ACLU for 3 years. She joined the American Library Association, and she alone changed how the American Library Association approached kids. No longer would they protect them from harm. Now they would say whatever they wanted, they could have, whatever the ACLU wanted the kids to have, which was pornography, among other things, and they would have it. And that's what happened. And she created the Office for Intellectual Freedom, which is the Freedom to Read Foundation, which is anything but. And and later on, that was in 1969, later on she created Banned Books Week, which is a hoax and is designed to continue to do what she wants. And this is the problem. Let me just give you a sample quote that this lady has said. Let's see if we can get that in there.
Yeah. So librarian, if not a legal process, there is not librarian in the country unless she or he is a lawyer who is in the position to determine what or she is looking at is indeed child pornography. So it sounds like Yeah, go ahead, Luca.
Yeah. Well, thank you for introducing me, Paul.
Oh, yeah. So sorry.
Yeah. Fuck off. Well, when it comes to that quote, it basically means, well, let me go back in a bit. When it comes to porn, wasn't ever, I guess, considered an issue of free speech, an issue of First Amendment. It was then, Michael Jones talked about it a lot, when it comes to normalization of pornography and defense of pornography under the First Amendment. Pornography was illegal under the obscenity laws. Now, the problem is, I mean, the legal term wasn't really defined of what is pornography. The legal term was, you know it when you see it. And those people who know it, and see it and who determine that it's obscenity, are usually lawyers. So what happens was, this is just some kind of a subversion, some kind of read between the lines. You can have librarians, working at a library. But if you're not a lawyer and you see something that is maybe a child pornography or something that is pornography, and you say, well, this is obscene. Well, I'm sorry, you're not a lawyer. You cannot really define what is obscene. So it might go in this direction, with that quote, which is so subversive, and it's like just like a slippery slope to go where we are now, basically, which is that everything that is, I guess, disgusting, everything that is destructive to society is protected under free speech and under the ACLU, like you said, the what they usually deal with free speech issues, right?
Yeah. Like how I interpret this quote, if she's saying, hey, if you're a librarian and you see child pornography on your shelves, no, you can't get rid of it because, you're just saying you can't get rid of child pornography in your library.
Yeah, yes, basically.
Is that correct interpretation, Dan?
That's correct. And in fact, lawyers for libraries, probably taking their training from which they blocked me from attending for, I guess, obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Have been advising libraries that if they see somebody viewing child pornography on the internet, they should do nothing because you might be violating that man's right to privacy.
Freedom, yeah.
Holy crap! I can't believe this. Like, this is shocking to me.
When did ALA when it was funded? When was ALA founded? Founded.
Oh, founded. I think it was in 18
in 1800s. Okay.
79 or I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I have a question. So if they're so into free speech, if are they actually into free speech? Like, could you have the protocols of the learned elders of Zion in the library?
That's a good question. I don't know if they have that in the library. I haven't come across a lot of issues related to that, but I do know that while they claim to be pro-free speech, they're actually not pro-free speech in some significant ways. Certain books are blocked. Books by conservative authors are regularly blocked and mocked in public libraries. Books about ex-gays, believe it or not, or any kind of reformative therapy or whatever they call that.
Yeah.
Whatever. Books about positive books about ex-gays are not allowed in libraries. There are a bunch of other books that are just not going to get into public libraries because they hate them for political reasons. And that's just the way it is.
So child porn, child porn is okay, but conservative books aren't.
They're not. Yeah. Well, they're not banning them. That's the issue. They're not banning them because they're allowed, but not in our library. But they're allowed somewhere else, and that's the issue in a way when it comes to, for example, in social media today. I mean, if you get banned from Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, well, those are private companies. Those are just places. You're not really denied some access or something like that, but we're gonna promote this stuff. But we're not gonna, allow that you have, your books here in this library or something like that. You're not banned, but you're not allowed in our, I guess, in our library. It's so subversive. It's so idiotic.
But I still don't understand. Like, so if you're a library and there's a conservative book that's coming out and the guy wants to put in your library, you can say no. Doesn't the same hold true for child pornography? Can't you just say, no, I don't want that because, well, whatever reason?
Well, you could, okay. But you see, the librarians have something called selection, which is their fancy word for censorship. So they use selection to keep out what they don't want in there. And as far as child pornography, they say that that's, free speech. They actually say that they oppose child pornography. So let's be clear. They say they oppose child pornography, but then they go further and say, you're not in a position to determine what is child pornography. Therefore, you cannot do that. Only a judge can do it, and only on a case-by-case basis. And when I pointed this out to the head of the Office for Intellectual Freedom, at that time Judith Krug had passed away and it became somebody else.
Buried at Shalom Memorial.
Yeah, buried at Shalom Memorial, yeah.
Okay. There she was, and there she is, and
Yeah.
now it's somebody else, and now it's actually somebody else, and
Yeah.
and what it is when I spoke with him, when I sent him an email about this, saying, look, it's right there in your model policy for librarians on how to write policies about how you're supposed to ignore child pornography. He said, no, that's not true, and then within the next day, it was removed from the website. So
Weird.
it was true. They removed it, but they still train this stuff. And I even have a librarian who came forward who was willing to admit that this stuff is going on. She wrote an email. I've published it. It says basically, this is the only email you're going to get from me. This is not my real email address. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. But this is how the American Library Association is promoting child pornography. I published that on my SafeLibraries publication. It's under something like a Brave Librarian.
Yeah.
Brave Librarian. And you could read what she said. So we have all this evidence of their promotion of child pornography. We have the lawyers writing things stating ignore people looking at child pornography. And this all started because of Judith Krug from the Illinois ACLU joining the ALA back in 1969.
Yeah.
Why? Well, why do you think she was motivated to do this? Like, was she just a big free speech advocate?
I don't think this is free speech. I think this is an excuse to harm people, but I'm not an expert on ACLU, why it started, or its opposition to to liberty and freedom or anything like that. I'm not an expert in that area.
As far as I know, and I didn't really do a deep dive on ACLU because I was kind of focused on the ALA. Yeah. But ACLU, it has fights. It had fights all over college campuses, and it was famous for it to fight for free speech and free debates that were happening on college campuses. It was mostly about communism, for example, and communistic ideas, that it should not be forbidden on college campuses because those are political ideas and are protected under the First Amendment.
Right.
So that's something that ACLU did, as far as I know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody correct me. So they're always fighting for, I guess, for free speech. But then politics come in, and then you fight for free speech of certain ideologies and certain ideas, and not for the others. So yeah, so let me go, I guess, into the most subversive kind of topic, and that is the gay strike force. I believe that was created by ALA in the 1970s, which is something that later became gay, lesbian, bi, trans, rainbow table. Which is something that is providing drag queen story hour that is happening today. So do you know anything about it? I guess have you gone somewhere deeper in it? Because we met. Well, Paul and you met because of the National Justice article, which
National-Justice.
Yes, National-Justice article that talks about drag queen story hour and this part of ALA is exclusively. So are you aware of it? Did you go into this part of the ALA, or just focus on ALA as general?
I have not gone into American Library Association's advocacy for gay and lesbian, whatever. And I'm not like an expert per se in their advocacy of that. I do know that Barbara Gittings was in some kind of a kissing booth at an ALA convention or something, and that supposedly began the movement of the
gay movement. Gay lobby, basically gay movement.
They used to be classified of abnormal sexual relations, including sexual crimes.
Well, I know about it. So the American Psychological Association had it under the DSM, which is like a Bible for psychologists, the list of mental disorders and all that sort of thing. And homosexuality was in it. before it. But in 1970s, and I guess before, when the sexual revolution came to it, it kind of become more and more normalized and pushed by the gay lobby to remove it from the DSM. It kind of the same thing that is happening today when it comes to transgender issue. I guess they're really pushing it to remove it from the DSM as I guess gender dysphoria. But about the ALA's first, like that, what is called Task Force on Gay Liberation. I mean, it was created in 1970, which is what I basically we read from the national-justice.com article, and it was created in 1970, and its first leader was Israel David Fishman, and Barbara Gittings that you mentioned. She became a coordinator, and she was kind of famous for her Hug a Homosexual, I guess, booth, and it's just pushed into like a normalization of these kind of things, and those dumb arguments, those dumb Christians, who said about slippery slope. Oh, how wrong are they right now? I mean, when it comes to normalization of gay rights, and then it goes further and further, and now we have what we have today. But the same thing goes with the child pornography, I guess, that is normalizing or just being different when it comes to library. What is I guess what is happening with the drag queen story, Aro?
Well,
can you
before I get the drag queen story, let me talk a little bit more about this gay angle of the American Library Association. The American, you said hug a homosexual. Oh, well, that's totally different than the American Library Association now. The American Library Association now targets homosexuals. I would almost say that they're homophobia, if that's a real word. They're almost homophobic. For example, the current leader of the Office for Intellectual Freedom, named Deborah Caldwell Stone, created some training for librarians in response to a library that had been exposed for making child pornography available. The training was to help librarians hide and cover up from people making child pornography available. They called it a crisis communication workshop or something like that. And a lot of librarians were shocked over this. They went to a crisis communication workshop and learned how to cover up for child pornography. And specifically, the two people responsible for uncovering the child pornography was a conservative woman and a conservative gay man. Well, because the gay man was one of the people uncovering this, the American Library Association decided to attack him for being gay. And they had a trainer, for example, who was the public relations person at the library, come in and teach people, because the woman would go around with her children to the library with this gay man while they were investigating this child pornography. And the trainer said, "Why would a woman let her small children around a gay man?" That's what was trained at the American Library Association. Just the opposite of hug a homosexual. And
that seemed very surprising.
Not only was that trained at the American Library Association, but then Deborah Caldwell Stone rehired this trainer for additional trainings. And when that was published on another author's work, she quit. She said, "Well, I'm not going to do that now," because she knew she basically got caught, and she was embarrassed. And the training lady quit, but not before the American Library Association knew what she was training and re-upped her. And it goes further. Because these people attended training, they took notes while they were there, and they went back to their libraries and they kept their notes and they put them away and incorporated them into things. And the people investigating this did FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests to libraries. And when the American Library Association found this out, Deborah Caldwell Stone, in an email using her personal email instead of work email, wrote a letter to all the libraries telling them to delete destroy and deny the evidence. Delete everything from the meeting. Don't give it out before anybody gets it. Well, guess what? Some of the librarians and some of the libraries had already provided us with information, including this email on her personal email from Deborah Caldwell Stone, telling them to destroy the evidence of them training on this homophobic stuff.
That really
shut it
surprised
down.
me.
Because there's no consequences for that lady. She's still there. Now they've promoted her to the head of the Office for Intellectual Freedom.
Oh,
I really don't understand this. I would have assumed the opposite, that they would have been pushing this type of stuff, like you should have a homosexual around your children unsupervised.
well,
But, like,
I mean, they use that to attack the opponents. I mean, they believe that it's normal, but the gay guy was a conservative.
Yes.
So that's the tactic. That's the tactic that they use. You know, it's just it's something that is happening also today. I mean, the conservatives also use it against the left, saying that, you know, the Dems are the real racist, as they call, you know, and it's just a tactic that you use to smear people. And attack them, whether, you know, and not really addressing the real thing that is happening, which is basically teaching how to hide child pornography. And, you know, it's now all about calling this guy, pardon my French, but faggot, and a fruit, and whatever, you know, a lot of these names that he was told. Yeah. It's all about that, and not really what is the issue here. And the issue is they were trying to hide child pornography that was happening in ALA. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's just a diversion of the real thing.
Yeah. So America's such a crazy place. Like, for a lot of our Slavic listeners, especially our Polish ones, they do not understand what's going on right now. And then they hear, oh, these gay men were conservatives. Just explain that in America right now, there are gay men in the Republican Party, prominent ones. Like, it's because in Poland, gay, if automatically you're leftist. Like, it's just like, that's how it is.
In Croatia also, the same. I mean, in Eastern Bloc, I guess it's all the same. I mean, when you look at the kind of idea of you being a conservative and you being a gay, it's like an oxymoron. It's like something that shouldn't be, you know, picked up together, because conservatives are against gay marriage. In our countries, gay marriage is illegal, so that's the. But anyway, let's go to the drag queen story hour.
And one thing from a previous topic before we go to drag.
Let's go.
When you were saying that. The definition of pornography is kind of amorphous. There's no legal basis for it. There's been no cases. Nobody can define it. That's exactly what the American Library Association uses to mislead people. That exact you just said, because it's like so obvious. But what they leave out is that the case that they worked on with the ACLU, because they worked very closely together, when they went to Supreme Court, where they tried to stop the law that required libraries to put on filters in exchange for federal funding. Okay, they lost that case. They spent a lot of money on it. Judith Krug spent a lot of her time on it. They lost. And the issue is that the Supreme Court decision mentions internet pornography plenty of times. That's what the whole decision is about. And it basically said that because public libraries have traditionally blocked pornography from their print collections, the fact that they're using filters is no big deal. They can continue to use filters.
Oh, could you explain what filters are?
So I will in a second. So the point of this is that while internet pornography could be a First Amendment right anywhere in the United States, when it comes to a public library, it is not a First Amendment right. You do not have a First Amendment right to have it. Let me tell you what filters are. Filters are pieces of internet software that look at a website and determine whether what it sees or thinks should be blocked. So initially filters were overzealous and overblocked. And a lot of them underblock, and a lot of them used to be awful, but now they're very good. But there's two issues with regard to the filters that I want you to know. One is the American Library Association continues to state that filters don't work based on the research of a woman who did this research about 10 years ago. Meanwhile, when Carla Hayden, a former ALA president, was confirmed as the Librarian of Congress here in the United States, she specifically stated that pornography is illegal and filters work to block it out of libraries. So in order for her to be, during her confirmation hearing, she said, pornography is illegal and filters work to block it out. That's what she said because it's actually true. But the American Library Association continues to state that that is not true and that filters don't work and you should not use them. I even caught the American Library Association just outright lying when they wrote an article for Huffington Post stating that library filters block out breast cancer. Then 1 week later, that same person goes on to an NPR station, National Public Radio. It was a local affiliate of National Public Radio. And she's questioned by the questioner from NPR, and he says, library filters don't really block out breast cancer anymore. They're much better than that. She says, yes, I know that. It's really an old example and I shouldn't use it anymore. Well, she just said it a week earlier in the Huffington Post. And since she was caught saying that on NPR, that actually filters work and they don't block breast cancer, the American Library Association has gone back to saying that it blocks breast cancer and you should not be using these filters.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Well, for us, I know Luca have strong feelings. Recently, there's been the Stop Porn movement going on. And I know, Luca, like you believe that porn should, what do you believe, that it should be banned or limited in some way in general?
It should be banned. I mean, when it comes to United States, I said that ACLU. I mean, they use the term that porn is protected under the First Amendment because that's what it is now legally. But it wasn't always like that. In the United States, porn was never part of the First Amendment. The First Amendment is political speech. That should be protected by the First Amendment. United States had obscenity laws. So obscenity laws, the term that they used in Miller versus, what was the name? Something, against somebody. They used, it said, you know it when you see it. So if you see it and you know that it's obscene, it should be illegal. But then later in 1960s, you had different kind of, I guess, the definition. They went against the Supreme Court about pornography. I mean, but like pornography, hardcore pornography industry, right? It was, what was the name of the pornographer? It's Gerstein. And then the ACLU also fought for to overturn the obscenity laws. So you had
ALA too.
Yes, in LA. Yeah, LA, well, they tried to normalize it in a way, and the ACLU just helped them to some kind of a legal backings of that. So pornography was banned and it was forbidden because it was obscene, not because it was, I don't know, hate speech or something like that. It was obscene. It was not something that people should consume. And I believe, I mean, when you, it has terrible impact on people. I mean, especially the young people.
Yes.
I mean, there's been studies where a girl, when she's like 10 or 12 or 13, if she sees porn, she has the same defects as if she was raped, as she was molested. That is how porn works. I mean, men spend their whole time looking at porn because, I mean, you cannot blame them in a way. I mean, you could blame them, but it's understandable. It's our primitive kind of feelings and instincts that are attacking us when we watch porn. I mean, so I'm all for it. I'm all for banning porn. It happened. It started this action. Some kind of action started with not November, which is a some kind of a meme, some kind of a joke. That in November we don't masturbate, we don't watch porn, and then the media started calling these people racist, incels, anti-Semites. I wonder why they call them anti-Semites, but so they started calling them those names, and because they started fighting against it, and then seeing some kind of a bad things that is happening when you watch porn, and good things when happens when you stop watching porn. So then all the internet, all the in our milieu, I guess, and which is right wing milieu, I guess. Michael Jones, Ramsey Paul, Strike and Mike, TRS crew, all of them started talking about banning porn, and Twitter was all into it. There is some kind of a movement, there is some kind of a fight against it, and I believe we should support it. We should be on the same side. I mean, if porn is not bad, then why is it bad to show porn in ALA in libraries?
Yeah, well, even if I believed that porn was good, which I don't, right?
Yeah.
Like because there's some people, I remember reading that people are taught that porn is good because it helps your prostate, so you should like use it because it actually got health benefits, right? Even if I believed that,
No.
I would not want it in libraries because homeless people will come into libraries and jack off. Like
all the time. All the time, and the librarians do nothing, depending on the library.
They do nothing? I mean, well, what can you do? But, call the police? Do they call the police?
They don't even call the police anymore because the police have to actually catch the guy with the thing in the hand.
Yeah.
And it's like, why waste the time anymore? So they just, libraries just have like hazmat kits to clean up the spunk from the keyboards afterwards.
What?
Holy shit.
Are you kidding me? This is so criminal. This is incredible.
It's so bad here in the United States that one guy, a reporter whose name, Carl, whatever, and he actually did a video of how bad it was in a library and took a picture of a guy when they realized the guy was actually masturbating while they were taking a picture of a guy looking at a computer. And then they went up to him afterwards and they said, were you masturbating in there? And then the guy tried to grab his camera away and all sorts of stuff happened. Carl Monday was the name of this reporter. Carl Monday did a report on this. And so actually, you could see it right on the news broadcast, the guy masturbating in the public library.
Oh my God.
Yeah, library does nothing.
So, it has to be the case that if this is allowed to go on, there are people who just use this as a service. You're homeless, you don't have an iPhone or whatever. So you just go into the library every couple days or every day, and you do this. So the librarians probably know, oh yeah, that Fred, he's gonna, do it. Get the mop ready.
It is so bad that in the Brooklyn Public Library in Brooklyn, New York, a beautiful, old, lovely library. So many people are doing so many awful things. The librarians do nothing because of the American Library Association training. The security officers do nothing because they're told to do nothing by the library. That one guy who complained went to the Brooklyn DA. The Brooklyn DA, the district attorney. The Brooklyn district attorney did not even do anything either. But he did do one thing. He told that guy to contact me. Now, how sad is that somebody can see pornography viewing in front of children? The librarians do nothing. The security guards do nothing. The Brooklyn DA does nothing, but says, go see Dan Kleinman from Safe Libraries. He can help you. The only thing I could do is publish it. That's all I could do. Nothing happens.
What can you do? I mean, does he break some legal law? I don't know. I mean, exposing yourself I believe that's illegal. I don't know. In Croatia, that would certainly be illegal. But it's United States. It's the most free country. You have the liberties,
I
and
have a
I guess you have liberties to jack off in a library. I don't know. It's
yeah, I
just
have a warning for Croatia and Poland and any other countries listening.
yeah,
If you have the American Library Association or the international version of the Library Association coming to your country to train your librarians in your country and your library associations how to protect intellectual freedom and all these high-minded things, they're
yeah,
going to be training them on the stuff that that is illegal and you don't want to happen in your countries. So you'll want to pay special close attention when those people come, and you'll want to
yeah,
get into those, go to those library association meetings, trainings, and find out what is actually being trained in there and whether it
yeah.
harms your country and your people and whether you
Can,
want that in your countries.
can anyone attend both meetings?
Well, if you pay the money.
Yeah, yeah.
How much money does it cost?
But I will
Well,
tell you, it depends. But I will tell you
depends.
this. Even though anybody can attend, the reality is that the American Library Association has blocked a number of people from attending. For example, that gay conservative, when the American Library Association had an annual meeting where they were giving an award to the library that protected the child pornography, they were giving them an intellectual freedom award. You get an award for intellectual freedom for protecting
Yeah, yeah.
pornography. I'm not making this up. Okay, when that man, gay man, went to go to that meeting in that conference that I paid for him to go to, I gave him the money, and he got into. They refused to let him in. They said, under no circumstances are we letting you in. So, no, it's not open to everybody. It's open to whomever they feel like allowing in there. So good
Yeah.
luck trying to get in there. Maybe you'll have to get some librarian friends on your side to get in there.
Okay.
Yeah,
So 20 years ago, you discovered this horrible institution. Like my mind would have been shocked. Kindergartners exposed to this stuff. You're doing this research. You're finding out, like for child pornography, for internet, for doing all this bad stuff. And looking behind you, I have a picture behind you. It seems to have gone even worse, right?
Yes.
So
now we're getting to Drag Queen Story Hour.
yes. So
Yeah.
I'll introduce the person who brought this in. It was a lady in San Francisco named Michelle T, born Tomasic. She, according to the San Francisco Gate, she was a prostitute and former drug abuser.
Yeah.
She introduced Drag Queen Story Hour in, I believe, 2015, and have recently.
For people who don't know, San Francisco is the
Gay capital. Yeah.
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Well,
Yeah.
it has lots of needles and human crap around now too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Incredible.
an app for those who don't know. There is an app where you can send like a mark that there is some poop happening in your neighborhood on your street, and so that people can see it and clean it. Basically, those who are responsible for cleaning it. It's full of it.
Yep.
And all I'm gonna say is, diversity is our strength. I'm not gonna say anything else.
Absolutely. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Michelle T, she introduced this concept a couple years ago. Apparently, it spread like wildfire. Recently, she was awarded the Diamond Stein Award for some of her work. Dan, could you tell us about Drag Queen Story Hour?
Yeah, Drag Queen Story Hour started, as you said, and then the American Library Association picked it up, and once they got a hold of it, it got supercharged in libraries nationwide very fast. The American Library Association trains librarians how to push this into their libraries sneakily. That's their word, not mine. They sneakily push this onto communities, actually openly planning how to even push it into conservative communities. Just whatever it takes. They tell you what steps to go through. They're finding where it's successful. They're taking their lessons and they're training the people on stuff. It doesn't matter to the American Library Association that Drag Queen Story Hour may be violating laws in American libraries, because American libraries are usually created by statute, a law. And the law usually says something like, we the people of Illinois want to create a library for the use and benefit of the public. Therefore, we create a board to carry out this. Well, the key is the use and benefit of the public. When you're talking about Drag Queen Story Hour, you're not necessarily benefiting the public. For example, if a child is crawling on a drag queen like this, that's not necessarily benefiting the public. If a child is looking up the behind of another drag queen like this being on a news broadcast from KHOU, which is a Houston station, then that is not benefiting children. If a drag queen is showing his crotch to children sitting right in front of them, that is not benefiting people.
That seems like explicitly a crime. Did that guy get arrested? Like, we have photographic proof that he was exposing himself to children.
Well, if you do look carefully at this, actually, you cannot see his whatever. He's actually wearing pantyhose. But there's no way that a woman would ever expose herself like this to children. Okay?
Yeah.
This is a man, and he's exposing himself like this, and I don't know, I'm not there. I don't know if you could see through pantyhose or not. I'm not sure.
No.
But
it's just disgusting, and it's not really, you cannot really legally say, well, it's a crime, well, because it's accidentally he showed it. It's not really, it's just it's all just a way that you can get away with it. It's just a bunch of loopholes that you can jump through and then get away with teaching all these things in ALA. It's so weird and so dumb.
And the drag queens love this. Look, I have nothing against drag queens. The American Library Association has opened the door for this opportunity. Drag queens are jumping in. That's what I expect them to do. The problem is the American Library Association. So you have people like this here, pedophile, who appeared in a Houston public library, and they actually had to apologize when they were caught by an organization called Mass Resistance. Mass Resistance has done a ton of research on these people and is catching these people and are being very effective from that point of view. Okay, so we see stories like this in the news. This is the first guy that they captured that was a pedophile in Houston. There was a second guy who was there as well. Here's a guy who was in a public school, and he is he's a felon for prostitution or something like that. This guy was actually a child sex offender. Okay, so the child sex offender is now coming in and reading in the Houston Public Library. And they have a rule, they want to make people think that they're doing good. So they have a rule that says we vet everybody. Well, they don't vet these people. That's why they're apologizing. We're sorry we didn't vet them. Okay, they don't vet them. I even saw librarians talking about this on a Facebook page that they use, stating that they're not going to be vetting these people because it would be a microaggression to assume that they would have a bad record. So they're not even going to vet these people. In addition, I have filed, and other people have filed, Freedom of Information Act requests on the Houston Public Library and other libraries for information about how this happened and will it happen again, because the Houston Public Library said they will continue to do this kind of thing. But they have thwarted any efforts, they've stopped any efforts for us to get any substantive information on how this happened, who recommended them, how they got in there, how and why they ignored the rules, and whether it's going to happen again. We don't know. Months and months of effort doesn't make a difference. They keep pushing this stuff into their public records. I even made a FOIA request for the funders of the library. They would not even give me who funds the library. They give you nothing, essentially. Yeah. They give you things that are useless, but you do get things. They're useless.
Yeah.
They give you nothing of substance. and so that is an issue of the drag queen story hour is allowing are people who have records are taking advantage of this to get in front of children so that they can go ahead and strip in front of them.
Yeah, the National hyphen Justice article goes into the funding of Drag Queen Story Hour a little bit.
But it's just like you said, it's some of those things may seem like useless in a way. They will tell you, well, we got funded by this company and this company. It won't tell you how much and for what purpose. But what we know, for example, the lady, my lady, Michelle T, that created this Drag Queen Story Hour, she's part of the Radar Productions, and that is something the Radar Productions is a Bay Area queer literally arts organization, which is basically creating art and books and writings from a gay perspective and kind of promoting those kind of things.
Yeah.
And on their website you can find who funds them, and then you look into more deeply and I guess national justice national dash justice.com. Oh God, why did he added this dash?
Apparently, you can just go to national-com. They made another website.
Oh, that's better. But anyway, you can find on that website, you can find the article, and they go a bit deeper. Not really how much money do they gave to this organization. It's just which are these organizations, what do they promote usually, and what they basically use Radar to promote. And that is something that they wanted to promote, which is Drag Queen Story Hour.
You might want to look at the tax forms called 990s. Sometimes they will list who they're giving funding to. For example, I've noticed that for several years, the Open Society Institute has funding the American Library Association with over $1 million. So you can see that right there in the 990s. So, if you want to, I guess you could look at the 990s of these organizations and find out how much money is actually being given over to these people.
Yeah, it's really something, and then but that's something that we also usually I guess when it comes to the Groyper movement. I know that you, Mr. Kleinman, maybe you're not aware of it all, something like that, but but the audience know what we talk about. But Mike Painovich, Mike Enoch, he said, we should ask Charlie Kirk. Does he promote these ideas that he promotes because he gets funded by this and this guy who promotes those kind of things? So we should go after the funders. We should go after where it all comes from. Because if we just bitch, not bitch, but complain on certain things, that is happening, you can never know who is really behind it, who is really pushing for it. So that's something that I know that you really you were focused on that is happening, I guess, not what is happening behind the scene and who is funding, because it's hard to find.
Right.
But that's something that we should also. I mean, you use your free time. I mean, Dan Kleinman is the only guy here. Come on, we need to be autistic a bit, just go into it and then look on the internet and try to find any connection that we can find to see where do they have this amount of money, and where does this will to push these things come from, and that is the funders.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Luca, that Dan's been doing this for 20 years. I imagine it's probably felt pretty lonely, right? Like, not a lot of people knew about this, even among our circles, people who would be outraged by learning these details. We only learned this a couple of weeks ago when the National article was published. But now, since a lot more people are going into it, do you appreciate people coming in, helping? How can they find you? How can they work with you? How can we fight the ALA?
Oh boy. Uh, how can they find me? I am at Safe Libraries on Twitter.
Mhm.
Um, you can write to me there. I think I
Yeah.
have I do. I guess you can go to a website and say about Dan Kleinman, and maybe it'll have my about page.
Yeah.
And the key that look, I can't take on every issue across the country because I'm one guy who works in the spare time. All right,
Yeah.
I'm not the American Library Association who has an office of a dozen people or so working on this, funded by George Soros money, like I just mentioned before. Yeah, so I don't have that kind of backing. But what I can do is I have experience, so I can talk to people and I could give them some advice. The
Mhm.
first advice I would give them, for example, would be to don't give up. This is going to be a long-term game that the American Library Association specifically trains people how to get away with stuff from parents. And one of their main, ways of doing it is to drag things out as long as possible, so the parents just eventually give up and go away. Uh, you also
Mhm.
have to get ready to be attacked. So you're going to want to maybe get yourself a personal email address, another phone number, another address, whatever it
Yeah.
takes to protect yourself, because these people can and will get very vicious and will do anything
Oh,
they can to
we
come after you.
we are very, very aware of that. I mean, the
Yeah,
people in our circles, by our, I mean, Paul and mine,
yeah,
and what we call the alt-right, in a way,
right,
dissidents, they have been attacked mercilessly.
right.
So we are very aware of what we are heading into. I mean, I mean, it's not really a problem for me. I live in a Slavic country. Who cares?
Yeah,
But a lot of people in the United States and then I guess in Europe and in Canada, you really need to watch what you're talking about, and you need to be prepared for the attacks. You need to
yeah,
be you need to be ready, have safe plans and everything like that.
right.
But what we need to do, because we cannot do anything basically. I mean we cannot change things.
Yeah,
We don't have the power to do so, but we can expose those things. We can show the people and then share those things that we do, and hopefully more and more people will know about it. And when the old things collapse, we will know what was the reason for it, and we can just start new and create something that is much better and learn from all these mistakes. Because let's face it, none of our people will just simply rise now and quit all those things. No, this whole system needs to crash down, because uh, there's no other way. It's leading to collapse. It's leading to collapse. I mean, when you have these things teach young kids and everything like that, this disgusting ideas, which is not really good for society as a whole, you're leading to collapse.
yeah.
Yep.
And
And
we need to understand what is happening and expose what is happening, and just create a counter movement, I guess, by this way.
so let me give some more advice then for,
Mhm.
I guess, how to do that, but how
Yeah.
to do what I do. The advice that I would give would be is to try to get up to speed and learn about this stuff before you make a move,
Mhm.
because they rely on people making moves too soon, and then they gang up on them, shout them down, and then never let them live down whatever they said that was incorrect.
Yeah.
It's one of their tactics. So it's usually a good idea to get prepared ahead of time. And the next thing to do is, in my opinion, is to stick with the law and the public policy, and don't go into extraneous issues, which are very important for many people, but are
Mhm.
extraneous to the issue. For example, issues of religion or morality are usually best left out, or homosexuality as well. When which could be, I guess, a both of
Part
religion.
of yeah, part of morality.
Because what happens is when parents say, I oppose this book because it contains homosexuality, the library community immediately laughs at them and then never forgets and continues to ridicule them for that. But if you say, I oppose this book because it contains inappropriate sexual material which violates your material selection policy, well, now that's a legitimate argument, right?
Hmm.
if you say we shouldn't have a library that has drag queen stories hour, drag queens in it because
It's
Jesus
immoral. Yeah.
said you're going to put a millstone around your neck and you're going to drown in the sea, that's not a good argument. But if you, in my opinion, because it's not a good argument because it doesn't work, in my opinion. A good argument is we shouldn't have drag queen story hour in a library because the law says that the library is for the benefit of the public, and drag queen story hour repeatedly harms children. I have more examples of that here. So those are my like major pieces of advice for people, and then I provide other things for them. I would provide maybe a platform if they want to say something publicly. A librarian has written to me, for example, and I'm revising not revising, I'm editing to remove all the personal stuff about Drag Queen Story Hour and her opposition and how she's being forced to do this in her library. And I'll be publishing that soon. Okay, so there's an example of a service I can provide, is to make people aware of what the librarian is saying about Drag Queen Story Hour. Just as I wrote, the librarian informed me about how the ALA is pushing child pornography. Another one is how the child died from autoerotic asphyxiation after reading that ALA site. So I can make this known to people, but I'm not in their states. And I'm not trying to control their minds, and this is key too. You're not trying to tell people what to do. That's what the American Library Association does. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to educate them for themselves, to provide them with equal views on both sides of the issues, which is why I tweet on both sides of the issues, for example, so they can think of things on their own and make up their own minds for themselves instead of having it being misled into it by a library association that's just flat out lying to them.
I believe that I kind of agree with this. I mean, I'm a Catholic, and I usually go from this kind of perspective, and a lot of our listeners are Christian and Catholic itself. But I believe when we argue with these kind of things, and when people say about morality and talk about the Bible and something like that, that's an argument from authority. And if they don't believe in that authority, it doesn't matter. And so I believe that you're right. You need to speak from authority, talk from an authority that they believe in, and which is their statutes, their laws, their what they I guess decided from beginning that they should do, and they're failing in doing those kind of things. Even though maybe claiming that that they will do it, they were gonna change it or something like that. I doubt that. I would much rather to burn them down figuratively, not literally. I mean, just destroy the whole system, institution.
Yeah. So someone tried that in the 1930s.
Really?
Yeah. Well, burning down a library before.
Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah. Some people try to burn those books that were damaging to society. And
Yeah.
What?
So Dan
destroyed a library in Timbuktu, for example.
Well, I mean that's kind of different, right? I mean when they do it, I mean it's barbaric because they destroy the history that it's not really damaging to society, but some leader in 1930s, I don't know, burned some books about transsexuals or it's a weird kind of story, but I'm not gonna. We're not gonna go into it because I guess you're on this talk and in this chat, but
Dan,
it's very controversial.
Dan, you mentioned that people have to be careful because the ALA can go after you. Before we went on the show, you told us that you've been sued twice. Could you talk about that?
Yeah. I'll be talking about that, and that is this. Going back to that library where the child pornography was covered up, and the library eventually admitted to it. And there's recordings of it on the internet and YouTube of these meetings where they admitted that they covered this up. So that's just an admitted thing. Back to that library. That was the library that was treating that gay man very badly because he uncovered this, calling him gay and a faggot and so on and so forth. And then by coincidence, they were able to get a recording of one of the library trustees and the library PR director coming up to the gay man and saying, "Get out of my way, you fruit. I hate gays." You know, things like that. And they got this recording, and that was recorded by a man from another organization called Edgar County Watchdogs, Illinois Leaks. And Edgar County Watchdogs, Illinois Leaks, put that recording that he made of this homophobic activity onto his website. Okay, he published it. I then wrote about this in an article on my publication called Gay Hate at Your Library. And I pointed or linked to this, what he wrote. That was the excuse that the American Library Association used to advise somebody to, who was the PR director of that library, to sue me in federal court for defamation for saying that she was homophobic, even though you could see it for yourself right there. Mm-hmm. And not only did the American Library, not only did this lady sue me with the American Library Association's help, but the American Library Association helped her. One of these ways was by telling these librarians to destroy that evidence that I had told you about earlier.
Isn't that illegal? Destruction of evidence?
Well, they don't care. You do anything to push their to push their stuff. That's why she used her personal email. They didn't even use an ALA email. Now she's the head of the Office for Intellectual Freedom. That they don't care. So that's why that happened. They tried to get him to destroy that evidence. That's the evidence that I could have used, for example, to show, hey, look, she gave this training. She said, why would a woman let her children around let her small children around a gay man? Here, it's right here. It's recorded. They deleted all that, so I don't have the recording of it, but I have notes about it, and that's why, so on and so forth. So I was sued in federal court. These things take a long time, like a year and a half. After I was sued the first time by this person, the case was dismissed without prejudice. That means the judge is not prejudiced. If you want to bring the case back another way, if you reform it somehow, you can do that. So it was dismissed without prejudice. So sure enough, they reformatted the case, specifically targeting me, never addressing the Edgar County Watchdog guys who originally published it. They just went after me for relinking to it because they wanted to sue me. They wanted to waste my money and silence me. They wanted to waste up to $500,000 of my money. How do I know? Because at the training, where we do have notes from FOIA requests that we did get before some of them were destroyed, part of the training was that if you're having people opposing your efforts with regard to child pornography, not making it up, that one of the things that you can do is sue these people for defamation because it will waste their time and their money up to $500,000.
Yeah.
So this woman who hid all the evidence and helped this person sue me for saying these homophobic things, which you could see on a camera, after that case was dismissed, it was reformed, and a second one was just basically targeting just me for my stating this stuff, because I'm the major voice speaking out against the American Library Association, and they found a means to try to silence me, and it didn't work. And they also tried to get me to remove my Gay Hate at Your Library story. They also wanted me to remove another one from another instance. The free speech people, they wanted me to delete or censor my own work, and they would settle the case. I never did. The story is still up. They lost the case. I won. It's over.
Oh, congratulations.
That's the way they work.
Yeah. About the gay hate of the libraries, is a gay community rallying behind this? Like, are there gay people who go and they say, oh yeah, I think the ALA is homophobic?
No. Nobody says word one because everybody assumes librarians are angels. They have a huge goodwill rating, and they act like they know what they're doing. And as Joe Walsh sang from the Eagles, if you act like you know what you're doing, everybody thinks that you do. Okay, that was on his album, Frogman. All right, and so they get away with this. And let me give you other examples of how they harm the LGBT community in serious ways, and nobody does anything. every year that they started this Banned Books Week hoax, which was started by this Judith Krug woman. The last book banned in the United States was in 1963. Banned Books Week was created in 1984 or something like that, 82. They consistently come out with books in the number 1 or number 2 position, like And Tango Makes Three, supposedly about a gay penguin that was banned. And they make it look like, because it had homosexual content, supposedly. And they make it look like it's the worst thing in the world, that these people hate homosexuals, these things are being banned all the United States. Here's the reality. The reality, and because I called up the American Library Association, I spoke to a guy who actually said, well, I collected the data, let me get my notes. And he gave me some information, and he was fired or let go a few months later after he gave me this information. And the information was this, that the number 1 book in the land was actually challenged only 4 times across the entire United States. They never tell you what the numbers are. The reality is, across the entire United States, the book was challenged only 4 times. That's the number 1 book. That's not a problem in the slightest.
It's astroturfing. It's astroturfing.
It's what it is. In addition, when you fake discrimination against gay people, which is what the American Library Association did, it actually results in increased discrimination and suicides of gay people, which is what the American Library Association did, but I'm not there to see the suicides or the increased discrimination. Yeah. That's what they did. How do I know this? Because I'm saying this stuff, I could be whatever. Here's how I know it. Because they listed their annual list in I forget what year it was, maybe 2010 came out, and number 9 on the list was a person whose book had been banned from a public school in New Jersey, where I was kind of heavily involved, to the point where the woman who complained to the ALA about this said that I'm changing the library business by my thing. Anyway, this woman was the media specialist in the school. She said she could not bring herself to read how sexually inappropriate these books are, so she had her students read these things. And one student found that a book was about menage a trois, so it was so inappropriate even for her that they decided not to train on that book. Anyway, there was another book in there that was removed because it had to do with one kid who was masturbating on some kind of like a soap dish that was rubbing his penis until it bled, something like this. And not making this up, a lot of other stories just like this. It was like an anthology of these kind of like stories that had to do with the gay issue, but had this sexually inappropriate stuff in it.
Yeah.
And the author of that book was listed as number 9 on the list of the top 10 most challenged books in the United States. Now, I was only aware that it was only removed from that one school. So I'm thinking to myself, how did that get to number 9? So I found out that author was going to speak at a New Jersey Library Association meeting. So I attended the meeting. This is why it's important to go to these things. And I recorded the meeting. And that author came and spoke about her book and how it was challenged in the school and how it was put on the list of the American Library Association as one of the most challenged books of the year. And then it was the end of the thing, and she was now going to take questions. I still haven't asked anybody anything or said anything. She took one question, she took another question, and finally I said, oh, what the hell, I'll ask. So I asked a softball question because despite what they think of me, I'm actually a really nice guy. Yeah. And I asked, what did it feel like to be number 9 on the list of the ALA's 10 most challenged books of the year? I mean, how's that for a softball question? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, she gave me a great answer. She said, I was so excited to be on that list. I was like, how could my book be on the top 10 list of the most challenged? Right? So I called up the ALA, she said, and I said, how did my book get on the list? And you know what the ALA told me? This author said, the ALA told me because 1, it dealt with homosexuality, and 2, it was actually removed from one school. And 3, there were other books that were challenged more than yours. But because it dealt with homosexuality, we decided to put it on the list.
Mm-hmm.
So I just caught that author admitting with her conversation with the ALA that they faked the list to promote the homosexuality angle. And would you know, after I wrote about that, for 2 years in a row, for the first time, no books were on the list for homosexuality. None. Following that, the 3rd year, it began again, and now it's with Entangle Makes 3 again with the gay penguin.
Yeah.
Because
gay penguin?
What it does is it riles up the gay community, and it gets them angry, and they are a giant amplifier. And they amplify this message about banned books like crazy. The ALA loves that.
Well,
so
of course.
They lie to get the ALA community, the gay community, whipped up, and that fake discrimination with the very few books that are faked anyway on the list gets blasted all over, and it results in increased discrimination and suicides of gay people. Same people that I've been talking about before, they're harming the LGBT community by faking discrimination.
Oh, I see. So their motive is to get the gays on their side.
Yes.
Okay.
It's all fake.
Could you tell me about this gay penguin book? Because that seems like a book aimed at children. Is that correct?
Yes, it's a book aimed at children.
Okay.
Yeah. It's furry smut.
Yeah. No, it is not.
I know.
So we should probably look to wrap up. Luca, do you have any parting thoughts?
Well, as a guy who studied to become a priest, I'm no. Let me just say that even Boston Globe also criticized the banned book week, because they said those books that were there on the list, they were just simply challenged because by parents for violence, language, sexuality, or age appropriateness, not actually removed, just challenged. Just said, well, look, we don't like it, just complain about it, and a bit didn't really remove them, so they were on the list. If you see that conservatives are hitting those kind of things, well, they're gonna push it even more. It just prepare your anus. We're gonna go deep with this. So I guess it's my ending words, my homily. In a way, it's the enemy is these kind of people who don't care. They don't care. They don't care about the concerns of people. They don't care about the concerns of the children or anything like that. No, they just want to normalize these things that are just hedonistic. It's just hedonistic, and it doesn't matter if it causes any psychological and physical dangers to these children, to the society. They just want to normalize those things. I mean, when you look at these people that normalize those things, and when you look at Barbara, what's the name of Whitman? Yeah, she's gay. She was gay. She wanted to normalize those kind of things. She wanted to do those things without any prejudice, without any judgment, without any repercussions or anything like that. And you see that constantly over and over again. I mean, you see the woman that wrote Drag Queen Story Hour, Michelle T, right? She's gay. She promotes those kind of things because it will normalize those kind of behavior, and it will be easier to be that guy and do those kind of things without any repercussion. It's just basic hedonistic behavior that is being promoted into society towards kids, not really looking about concerns of these groups. So it's something that we need to tackle, and then you're doing amazing work with just exposing ALA and what it's doing, and all the bad things that they're doing, and what they are pushing. So, and allowing again in LA. If not pushing, they allow those things in their libraries. Yeah, and they're pushing. Yeah,
They're facilitating it.
yeah.
And
So thank you very much for exposing those kind of things.
yeah, and I would say in Poland right now there's a law being drafted called the Stop Pedophilia Law
Yes.
that aims to explicitly make this type of stuff illegal. Sexualizing children, encouraging children to have sexual activity will be punishable by up to 3 years in jail. I am a strong supporter of this law after talking to you. Like, yeah, 100%, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
if anything, it should be much harsher. Right. Both over my parting words. Dan, well, could you have your parting words, please?
One more thing I just want to tell all you potential advocates out there is that these pictures that you saw here from this library that just look like pedophilia to me, okay, this was from the Multnomah County Library, okay, and Multnomah County Library, when they were challenged by this, several reporters I know contacted them, they deleted all these pictures from their Flickr account. So, like I told you, the ALA deleted the child pornography evidence. The head of the Office for Intellectual Freedom told people to delete evidence of their homophobia. This library deleting evidence of this. Okay, if you're going to challenge the library on things that you see online, you need to make copies of this stuff first. PDF copies, however you do it, save it on archive.org. Whatever you do, you got to get this stuff saved, because they can and will go in there and delete this stuff and then claim, well, we never did that. So you're going to get caught doing that. So I want to thank you all for speaking with me. If anybody wants to follow me, you can follow me at SafeLibraries.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. This is a picture, by the way, of a drag queen collecting money from children. This picture actually went kind of international. It's a picture I put up, and it became international after that, and that started a lot of it, which is why
that looks like a strip club.
Yeah, with little kids giving them dollars.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's same as Desmond is amazing, basically.
So I'm thankful for you for speaking with me. I hope I helped people in the countries where you want to help them as well. And anybody wants to ask me anything, go ahead, follow me. You'll see the things I tweet about occasionally.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend, if anyone's in Poland, please, if you're a librarian, please contact Dan. If you see any of this stuff, we gotta be vigilant. They definitely want to spread this globally. It's kind of a global librarian system for sure. And Dan, thank you so much. I would also like to thank Kay Lufbrook, who wrote the National Hyphen article that brought this to our attention in the first place.
Yeah.
So thank you, Luca. Thank you, Dan. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.